welcome back to the third session and the third module of the Research Networking Day, Anarchy in the AI. And I would like to introduce you the host of this session, Miriam Akkermann, who is Associate Assistant Professor of Musicology at the Technische Universität Berlin. Her research areas include music of the 20th and the 21st century, computer music and music technology, digital musicology, musical performance practices, archiving music, and also the relationships between music research and artistic practice. And I would like to also highlight that within the framework of the project Lullaby, her research focuses on the effect of music on sleep. So, Miriam, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and welcome everyone back to the third module of this Research Networking Day. And with this, I would jump into introducing our first speaker of this panel. It is jiawen offline. Jiawen's research focuses on technology as memory and desire. Through their work, Offline interrogates the poetics, materiality, and hidden stories of technology, seeking counter-narratives that reproduce depth and context to a field of often sterilized beyond recognition. And I especially like that she says that she wants to exist as an analog Käse in the digital sphere. So we are very happy to have you here, and with this floor is yours.
Thank you for your introduction, Miriam. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is jiawen offline, and today I'm going to talk about leaks as a matter that matters in our offline and online life. I believe all of us here are familiar with leaks in its different forms, maybe bursting gas or leaking pipes, or maybe bodily leak, tears, menstruations, or maybe informational leak, circulating gossips, or whistleblowers. And during my research period, I made an Excel sheet to collect leaking incidents happened at that time. And leak occurs surprisingly often and are surprisingly quick to slip away. Leak is accidentally losing something or admitting something. A leak exists between inside and outside, between possession and loss. And it's never a definite state. It's a state of contingency. It is not binary, and it's uncertain. And I would like to talk about this uncertain, contingent, leaky state in computation. Our sleek-looking computers, as it turns out, very leaky. Not only that, according to Chang and Friedland, in their 25th essay, Habits of Leaking of Sluts and Networking Cards, our computers are even slutty in how they receive and transmit data. So the fundamental of today's internet is based on the protocol TCP/IP, which stands for Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol, which has been in use since 1982 with the establishment of ARPANET. So how it works is whenever you send a message to a loved one, or when you search a question, to ask question on Reddit, and the moment when you press enter, the request got broken down into small packets. And those packets travel through multiple hubs via the middle agency, which also known as routers, before they can finally arrive at the destination server, perhaps on another continent, and to retrieve the data you are asking for. And here I trace routed the CTM festival's website. So you can see, one can get geolocation data based on the IP address, but it's not always accurate. Sometimes it will show you the registration address rather than the actual data center or server room address. So I started, the request started from Bremen, and then it went to, I guess, the registration office of some Berlin organization, and then went to somewhere in Niedersachsen, and then it finally arrived at Sina. I think it's a service provider which is hosting CTM Festival's website data. These packets These traveling packets leave traces on every router they pass through. Normally, packets are just passengers. They got received and then they got forwarded along. But when the router's promiscuous mode is enabled, and by the way, here the promiscuous mode is not some old political incorrect story. As you can see in Wireshark is a networking monitoring software. The promiscuous mode is still widely used in this network context. So when the promiscuous mode is enabled in the router, all the packets passing through it will be returned to its CPU. And this is only one example of how our everyday technology is leaky, but it's definitely not an exception. I can quickly show you more examples. Your computer power consumption can be used to infer the software you are running. Radio waves, be it Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or other frequency signals, constantly wash over thousands of intended devices when it is looking for its targeted device. The JPEG compression algorithm leaves artifacts that leak into its neighboring 8 pixels. Your heartbeat can be extracted from facial video footage by manipulating color channels to show the blood circulation. The diodes in our phones are constantly leaking currents. The HDMI cable projecting this presentation you are looking is radiating RF signals, but I'm not quite sure about this because CTM got really nicely shielded ones. And in underground environment like in mining site or in nuclear plant where Wi-Fi cannot be received, cables with gaps that are used to allow the radio signal to go in and go out, this communication system is called leaky feeder. Leak to feed. Maybe you have noticed that some of the leaks are fundamental to how technology operates, while some leaks are latent, lingering around comfortably outside of the source until it is captured. And this brings us to an intriguing concept in machine learning, wild data sets. Wild data sets refers to data sets that are not generated in a laboratory environment, but are captured from real-life situations under uncontrolled viewing conditions in pose, illumination, occlusion, and background. For example, this is a tiny and low-resolution data set. And what you can see in the background is all the tiny faces that are in the data set. And this is a benchmark for recognizing tiny person that is less than 20 pixels. And this is a tiny activity data set collected by a surveillance camera. All the captured activities are being cut apart, labeled, and categorized. We leak as we walk, talk face to face, text, carry heavy objects, talk on the phone, exit structure, enter structure, or pick up objects. When in the wild, we become tiny and pixelated. We are parsed into machine-readable fragments. Our faces are reduced to feature vectors, medical records to image embeddings, voice into analyzable waves, and iris into unique high-contrast photographs. Then they are used to train machine learning models to identify something that are even tinier and in lower resolution, again from us. And what's ironic is while tech companies and governments encouraging us as users or as citizens to leak, the large language models trained from the data we leaked refuse to participate, quote unquote. It's a bit ironic to quote unquote what ChatGPT replied, but whatever. It refused to participate or encourage any illegal activities, including leaking. Unless the radio signal saturating us suddenly disappears and the world stops communicating with each other, otherwise we, as well as our technologies, will be constantly leaking. The word leak itself carries interesting etymological tone, from lecken to drip, to lecca to piss, to leck deficiency. It always has this shadiness and brokenness associated to it, or in trans word, dirty, open to all traffic, indiscriminate. Now that we are in such broken reality, which is already happening or is a constant reality in other parts of the world, leak might be an approach for us to stay with each other, to build a side channel to have each other heard, and to navigate together in space and time that is hidden while it should not be. In VPN service, similar to like physical machines, there's a mechanism called kill switch. It will kill all the internet connection, or as we talked before, promiscuous transferring, while the virtual connection fails. Instead of killing to avoid leaking, maybe what we can ask is, who is capturing the leak? Who is weaponizing the leak? Who is imposing shame on the leaking individual? And who is killing leak to prevent solidarity from forming? I hope you all have a good leak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks so much for this super interesting thoughts. And I think my first question after hearing all these possibilities that are kind of scary, I was wondering, are there also chances that you see that how we could use this leak maybe, or this leaking against the systems?
At first, I wanted to say, or maybe ask why or what makes these possibilities scary. Because when I was preparing, I kind of didn't realize that.
I think, especially as you showed this wild data set that you can learn or show or offer quite a lot of information unwillingly, and with the new technologies we could capture a lot of information that we might give away unintentionally just by the way we behave, and because systems are able to capture what they are able to capture. And I think in current days there are a lot of scenarios where all these unwillingly provided data can be used against us, and probably we know more the scary versions than maybe the good versions for us. So that's why my question, do you see also kind of ways to use it in a positive way, or maybe also against these potentially evil systems?
Yes, now I know what you mean by scary. Yes, that is very scary indeed. Actually, this project started in COVID time, and at that time, in the country where I was, there's like very crazy lockdown and stuff, and but which just kind of like intensified during that period of time, and which is actually a constant reality, and people are trying to use decentralized technology or trying to build up their own radio channel, or not radio channel, but like radio station, to try to communicate with informations that cannot be spreaded in online or with other kind of possibilities. So I think this is like trying to build independent communication channel that is self-hosted. I think this is a kind of leaking. Also because I'm not sure if it's also the case in Germany, building building a radio station by yourself is kind of prohibited by the state because it can interfere with state-engaged radio communication, maybe probably even within the military and stuff.
Here it's the limitation is on the range to which you broadcast. So you can broadcast, I think, to the neighboring room, but you're not really allowed to broadcast all over the city or in a higher distance.
It is actually possible. It depends on the frequency and FM and the AM.
I meant the answer to your question. What is allowed in Germany depends on the distance and on the power that you use. So, but let's say in the private sector, you can't really broadcast far distances. But that's also linked to my other question that was immediately raised. What do you think of these very few spaces that we have that are kind of safe, where it's not possible at least for information leaks that are transmitted via internet or via cell phones, via radio? Are these spaces, have they new potential maybe to be used? I asked this because I have been most recently in an art space that was an old atom reactor, and it's super proof. So it was one of the qualities that we got first presented by the guide, that it's absolutely proof for any transmission. And what would you maybe envision also? What is it good to have these rooms? Do we need more of these? Maybe also proof versions?
Yeah, I think it's very nice, but I don't know. I think we can only prove what we already know, and there's already always more possibilities of try to leak in or leak out. And for me, it's also more about an imagination on how we can operate technology beyond those tech bros' imagination on technology, like Elon Musk's imagination on whatever he wants to do.
What would be your wish that could leak? That you would want to leak if you could imagine something?
I would hope there's no censorship. This would be the immediate thought that is in my mind when I ask this question. Because, I don't know, these years, everywhere is getting worse and different kinds of censorship is everywhere. That's things we didn't expect it before, and it's suddenly there. And I just hope this kind of censorship can be it can be override by leaks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ici le bac. And I'm happy to welcome our second speaker, Yann Martins. He is a coder, artist, and currently PhD researcher at the Institute for Experimental Design and Media Cultures at the Critical Media Lab base. And he works on merging software developments with critical inquiries into technology's social impact. And in his doctoral research, he explores through critical debugging the subverting standard browser functions to reveal hidden algorithmic processes. So that chimes in perfectly well with the first presentation. And with this, Yann, very welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thanks for having me. Thank you for these kind words. So my presentation is a read-along, so I will read, and you can also read while I spit out what I say. So, there is a number of scholars that refer to the production of data through interaction with social media and other, why is it starting here? Okay, well, whatever. Another online interfaces as mode of extraction. This means that laptop, smartphone, and tablets are the sites for data production. Yet, so the scholarship on data extraction is rather abstract. So finding the exact places where data is extracted requires a careful reading of technical, critical papers describing how YouTube, the recommender system, works. This in turn helps understanding what to look for to identify where data is produced when visiting YouTube, for example. That is my case study in my dissertation work. So in my practice, the primary objective was to develop an understanding of how data is manufactured at algorithmic level. Achieving this required repurposing debugging tools in unconventional ways. These tools are available on any browser and provide extensive suite of capabilities, including network analysis, code inspection, and so on. Debugging tools can halt code execution, reveal variable contents, and crucially display the entirety of the code running out of the device in use, like this laptop or your phones. And the latter are commonly employed by web developers for error correction. So when developing websites, if there is problems. So this functionality renders them instrumental for examining the underlying mechanism of data manufacture, for example. And so drawing on insights from the technical and critical papers cited above, it became feasible to navigate and interpret YouTube's code base effectively by employing a combination of methodologies, including network analysis, track traces, and logging. A focused investigation over several months led to the identification of a data production site within YouTube's code base, hovering. So here there is a series of memes with cats, more cats. So hovering. So this now is code that I extracted and kind of cleaned up a little bit to understand how hovering works. So in these few lines, basically is how a hovering event is stored to then be sent to YouTube's servers. I don't want to go line by line, but you get an idea. So the first part shows how logging events is triggered through a function that is a log event. And while the second part shows what happens within the log event function. The latter computes the amount of time that the user has been hovering over a thumbnail. It saves that data together with the video ID and then sends it over network back to YouTube servers. All of the code above describes how an action like hovering could be captured and rendered at that point. Nevertheless, in order for it to be recognized as a form of labor and thus justifying the terms like extractivism, manufacture and production, something more needs to happen. First and foremost, there is the need to acknowledge that data is a commodity that is sold. Therefore, its production requires labor. And so within labor, there is an important separation to be done, so necessary labor time and surplus labor. So the first is the amount of time a worker should work to earn its own salary, and the rest of the hours is the time in which the worker becomes productive for the employer, making him earn money. So there is like a threshold between the two things. And so this separation can also be seen as the moment of time in which a worker needs to work in order to be productive for the company. So to say the amount of hours to cover all of the company expenses, wages, production costs, infrastructure, etc. And so if we zoom out from a company and we go into the the algorithm described above, an obvious question can be asked to the algorithm is, when does it become productive? So to say how much time one should be hovering in order to create a surplus for YouTube. And so I want to draw you the attention to these two values, 500 and 600,000. So in the computer coding jargon, they're called hard-coded values. I mean, the attention is in the lines in green, sorry. So those are hard-coded values. They are immutable. Usually it is something that programmers avoid to use except for specific purposes, like the one shown here below. Usually hard-coded values are often stored in variables and give a proper name for maintainability, and yet here they are shown in clear text. And this readability clearly gives away what it happens in these few lines of code. A value related to hovering over a video thumbnail is measured against these hard-coded values, whether the user is hovering for more than half a second or less than 10 minutes. So hovering duration is measured against those two values, and then it is fair to assume that those two values represent two hard boundaries for what is considered a mouse over event, as the string in the clear view tells us. So, and given the infrastructure magnitude of YouTube, such hard-coded values hopefully are not casual, and so those values left so visible for everyone to read must represent measurements for what can be considered productive and unproductive hovering over thumbnails. So to say hard threshold to consider mouse over as over, describing a time span of productive data production. So hovering within those two temporal boundaries can be understood as a specific form of interaction that contributes to the production of surplus value. These boundaries delineate the time frame during which a user's activity actively supports the platform profitability. So it can be speculated, for instance, that hovering for less than 500 milliseconds may generate sufficient engagement to offset the cost associated with server infrastructure. Conversely, extended hovering exceeding 10 minutes could potentially impact the platform's revenue model to such an extent that it might influence broader organizational outcomes, such as staffing decision for software developers or even leadership changes at executive level. So to say, by removing CEO, if you were to change the way you interact with hovering. And so 2 minutes, perfect. We go to the last part of this talk. So I want to close this presentation by proposing a strategy for how to deal with these extractivist data practices. To do so, I need to shortly introduce two concepts: Luddite movement and data poisoning. So the former is a late 18th century movement of workers rebelling against the introduction of mechanization for the production of textiles in England. At least this is one of the many stories, I guess. This caused workers to see their work reduced to repetitive tasks and consequent reduction in salary. This resulted in the creation of the myth of King Ned Ludd that would be chanted by workers during the revolts against the factory owners. The reason for such revolts was the request from the workers to be able to maintain their lifestyle that was attached to their working expertise that was robbed through mechanization. Data poisoning is the practice of meddling with data that is used to feed machine learning systems. For example, recommender algorithms are based on what the user is watching. One approach to poison their data set would be to intercept the data about watching history and change it to something else. So, but nevertheless, such approach would, in my opinion, flag the platform owners that something fishy is happening and therefore flag such poisoned data as not original. And so therefore, such adversarial approaches toward data accumulation can be seen as a contemporary development of machine breaking, because despite the lack of violence, the goal is to break the algorithm that's the prediction and to make the prediction not that accurate anymore. And so such term could be termed as post-Luddite, a post-Luddite approach to machine breaking. And here, in these last 50 seconds, I would like to show you how to summon a ghost. So, for example, the ghost of Ned Ludd. And so, through my debugging practices, the YouTube algorithm can be injected with custom code using log points. If inserted in the correct spot, in our case close to the code that evaluates hovering, this piece of software broadcasts the duration of hovering to local server that then turns it into a MIDI message. This micro snippet of code and the server side code turns watching YouTube in an alternative experience. Rather than watching a video, the user can trigger MIDI notes of various length by hovering video thumbnails. This makes the data completely unreliable, as the hovering information is not tied anymore to the consumption of video content, but rather to music production. And this is how the phantom of Luddism can be summoned. This ghost has the roots in the Luddite movement as a practice that wants to disrupt technological exploitation, while at the same time it offers playful approach to it, referring to the Latin term ludere, to play. And so the need for this playful approach is to resist the often misleading imaginary of Luddites as only violent anti-technology movement, and rather highlight the possibility of technological counter-strategy also through playful actions. And I want to conclude here with this that I found with my students in 2019 as I think the most amazing piece of debugging that we ever did, and this is Facebook code base, and they have a strict policy about which variables can be shown in public or not. And with this I'm done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks so much for this insight into really very specific details also of our average use of technology. And you said if we take your last example, that you can play music by your mouse or by your control devices. Did you explore? What did you explore, or how did it feel to play the music also on the kind of not only on the data production side but also on the consumer side, let's say?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I can give you an example that is not connected to hovering, but that is connected to something else, and this is so. There was this sort of, so to say, what happens with the algorithm that is often mentioned by YouTuber as like the algorithm is pushing me down and up, and then there is some sort of recounts of how closing, in which they say that by closing the YouTube window on a specific video, it would demote that video, and something that it was happening to me was while I was experimenting with all of this, I was capturing all of the data, and like almost I gave a sound to almost everything. And every time I was closing a window, I was hearing this sound, and I was thinking that it was a mistake or an error that I had, and I started to debug my own code for debugging. That was really kind of a mind fuck. And then I realized, no, that actually also the people who wrote the paper about what this was happening, but also the people that say the algorithm is demoting me. I mean, they were correct. Whenever you close a window, there is a last broadcast that is sent to YouTube. I don't know what is the meaning of it. In general, it sends a lot of information, but it also sends the video ID. The video ID onto which the tab was closed. That is kind of, and then you realize, okay, they really need this information. Well, why would you want to have this information? But of course, it is to basically demote the other. And so, let's say my kind of musical approach into this was very much more connected to the sound and how the sound helped me understand how this algorithm was working, because I wanted to stay away from visual representation of what was happening, and because I thought it would distract me and the sound would actually help me in a way.
And did you find, I mean, it's a lot of information that's tracked additionally, and when you think of these, let's say, these ghost data making the prediction, or kind of interfering with the prediction algorithms, did you also experience changes then in the behavior of the website?
So there is two things that need to be taken. No, not two things. Let's say so. My YouTube algorithm is completely crazy. Like, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really reflect any of my value. I don't know if anyone else feels the same, but I feel like mine is completely gone by its own way. And it also follows 3 years of doing this, in which I was basically using YouTube not to watch videos, but also using YouTube to generate sound. And I guess in a way it kind of worked against the predictions. And now I have like a very chimera situation in which there are certain things that are interesting, and then there is sometimes like really random stuff pops up, and it's somewhat interesting.
So if you want to kind of distract the algorithm, then you would recommend to start playing music with it?
This would be one approach. It is more, this was like my approach to, but it is an invitation to, once you have an understanding, once you have an understanding of a technical object, and it's, I don't think I'm the first one. There is plenty of people who resist technology, and they use playfulness in order to resist how certain technological things operate. And so there is one example by this American artist Adam Harvey, who was using face paint just to resist, for example, face recognition. And it's like a work from maybe 15 years ago, but I think this is like the kind of approach where you can just be playful and still and be resisting towards like some exploitative technology.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And I'm very happy to welcome our third speaker of this session. Matwe Kascak is a PhD candidate in digital culture and creative industries at Technische Universität in Brno. Matwe merges academic insight with practical experience. He was teaching festival theory as a freelance curator and educator. He is co-founder of the techno party Noncha and the founder of SPFM, a booking agency representing underground electronic artists across the region. And he also served 5 years as a co-member of the Slovakia Pohoda Festival. He is also DJ, and in his work as a DJ, he's inspired by the diverse festivals and gatherings he frequented worldwide, performing in a global electronic music community. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. I don't need to introduce myself. That's good for the timing. So I'd like to talk about some artists that I admire and that we work with. So the baseline of what we can see everywhere, not just in our region, is that the Pandora's box is open. It's made its way into workflows, whether we like it or not. Most schools are welcoming this change and understanding the role of AI in these workflows as well. Some are analyzing its impact, some are incorporating some guidelines into their structures already, which we can see also at our university, which created an online course for every student about AI and its use in the academia, which is great, I think. Also, we found out that some groups are actually dogmatically against it, which I will illustrate on one case from our country. And based on interviews with the artists, similar outcomes were reoccurring. So the AI mostly saves time, affects the aesthetics, expands the UX and quality of life. AI is mostly a sampler from which the artist draws samples, choose what is relevant, and it's used mostly as a digital tool or set of tools out of many. Then what's important in this sense is something what we can see that the people are distinct in between maybe good use of AI and the lazy AI, or that's many people label this as such as the approach which is really focused on the outcome first is quite lazy. And also we can see that the AI is not yet truly autonomous, still requires a person educated in art, composition and stuff, and integration with other tools to achieve the final artworks. So it gives us some hope for the future. And the good AI, as I said, is a sample, not a final product. AI as a tool for inspiration, assistant in the artistic workflow, time-saving tool, memory tool, etc. And what's also important and what's occurring, it's using the open source models and the so-called LoRa's, learned on non-controversial data, personal or copyrighted data, as opposed to the models used by corporations. And the bad use of AI, I will probably skip due to time because we all know what those are, I guess, anyway. So let's go for the first case, and it's an interesting one. I have the book right here actually, and it's called Výsledky vzniku, which means results of creation. It's actually a book of poetry generated by AI that won the National Poetry Prize in Slovakia in 2021, which is, of course, something that happened for the first time. And I don't know any other country that actually, where this happened. If you know about such similar case, let me know, but this is really special one. And what's also special about this book is that although it's been fed thousands of Slovak poetry texts and literature and magazines and everything, and it was done by GPT-2. It's not only about the poems themselves, but it's also the most important thing, probably why it also got the prize, is that it also embedded the work in the context of digital art, and is also referencing the love letter generator by Christopher Strachey from 1952, and Theo Lutzow program generative poems, blah blah blah, and similar stuff. So it's really, really interesting. There's also a part dedicated to the whole process, which was how it was generated. And Zuzana Husarova is a great artist, and I definitely recommend her other works. You can also see it online at this website, as all the poems are written down in this interactive form, and it was also exhibited in some cases in the gallery space. So then we've got another case, and here we go to a first video. Yeah, so what we saw here is the project called Axontor, and what I like about this project is that it's very deeply rooted in AI. Everything basically is created with some help of AI, and we had a talk with Oliver about how he sees the role of AI in general. He's also mentioning a lot of concepts of posthumanities and stuff like that. He's using the GPT as his second brain. And then they both work with the Axon body to generate also their images for stimulation when they create new music. So it's basically a loop. They create some images, based on that they create music, and this is how they actually work. But also what Oliver likes to do, I like to reference for Oliver, because you can close Oliver in a room with anything and he will come out with a track. So that's he really likes to break things. And for example, he's using the RipX-DAW stem separator, and he's a big fan of how it's made videos. So he feeds them random noises, and when the stem separator is trying to understand what are the layers, it actually creates a beautiful gibberish. So this is how Oliver likes to hack things and destroy everything that's under his hands. Of course, he's using a lot of 11 Labs voice changer for transcription, audio generation, same as here. He just, feeds the tool nonsense, and it's really, really fun. But what's very important, that they are also using the AI to build their own custom instruments. For example, Oliver created his MIDI ocarina in this sense, that he just showed the GPT a concept. He listed the parts that he wants to include. And the fourth iteration created the scheme and the code for the Arduino actually that was necessary to build this. So then they 3D printed it, and this whole process avoided them hours of coding and testing and etc. You can imagine that. These are some examples. These are their custom guitars and a harp, and so this is also one of the examples of their work. In the middle, it's the MIDI ocarina, and on the left side, it's a new tool that they created in Brno at the residency. It's a bass cannon with a reactive laser as well, and on the right side, it's an instrument which is basically built on the concept of the air raid siren, but it's also created with this sense. Axon Body is another half of this duo, and although he's French and Czech, and this is supposed to be a panel about CEE artists, but he's ours. He's one leg from Czech Republic. So although I'm going to show you another video of FK Twigs, it's been done by artists who is involved with the CEE. So this workflow was created with compositions with the body from supplied pole dancing footage, then running an AI to morph everything on top of that while masking the face. Tools used were Stable Diffusion through ComfyUI and After Effects, of course. So, here we go. Maybe you saw this video already, it's quite fresh. This is not a part of the video, but this is Axon Body's other work. This is the Axon Tor aesthetics that they work with mainly. So yeah, this is a glimpse into their artistic world. And I really recommend following Axon Body because he's really working on awesome projects, and his use of AI is something else. Oh my God, I've got only 15 seconds. Is that a big problem? So I will try to be quick. Case study, another is Niva, which is a project coming in from Prague. It's a digital avatar, and yeah, we can shoot this video. This is a video from. This is a video from which is old, maybe like 1.5 years. It was being done by motion capture, where a dancer was dancing in front of the camera, and. Yeah, and then it was transferred to 3D in Unreal Engine, and then exported with a black background to allow the prompts of Stable Warp Fusion to create those blend of interesting backgrounds frame by frame. And as you can see, I don't know if you feel like it's the same, but it's already regarding as old school or something, as this was the birth of AI videos. Also FK Twigs had one of those in the start. And now this is actually the interesting case that Niva reverted to fully 3D works, because rather than having an unlimited supply of influences, she likes to feel the exact outcome under her hands. So she actually stopped working on these videos. Another case study is Boris Vitazek and his narrative absence. Boris is one of the most successful artists in Slovakia in terms of digital art. And yeah, what he did was that he was using some combination of real footages, VCV-Rec, Stable Diffusion, ComfyUI, and audio reactive triggering from VVVV. So he's really combining all of these tools together. And we can see a short example of his new live AV, which was presented at Lunchmeet Festival in 2024. Maybe I'll just skip to this, because this part is the part where you can see the audio reactive part. So how Boris actually works with this, it's he just leaves the ComfyUI to generate thousands of outputs, which then he just pre-selects with a mask, and then he uses audio reactive triggering so that the frames get triggered when he plays music, and yeah, you probably get the idea. But of course, he combines it with other elements and yeah, real footage, as I said. Okay, we can pause here. Yeah, and what he does is also he is very much involved in the theater work. And for example, this Joe Biden has as you can see, it's probably in Eastern Europe. It was created with the LoRa that's fed on a lot of panel buildings and stuff. And then he also was involved in creating fake history albums for one theater group. And he also does digital art, printed like this prints, which saved him during COVID, and he keeps doing that because it's awesome. This is his scheme of Comfy UI. It has, of course, a lot of blocks which some of them work as an upscaler tool. Some of them are modifying different patterns, but let's skip through that because most of you probably know Comfy UI and its use. And then I wanted to switch into graphic design because we work, when we do our party, we started to work with Branjo Matis, who is designer of Slovak National Gallery, which is currently quite under threat in our country. And he works with the AI since the beginning, using the samples in his works. The text which is listed there is actually from the application because we applied for a national prize for design with his designs. And what he does is, I'm sorry I'm taking too long, but at least I'm the last one. Yeah, continue. Yeah, so this is a very long video, so I'll just skip through a couple of the cases because it's a compiled footage from all of the footages that were the video materials for our 38 parties that we've done so far. So he's using various combinations of media, but also a lot of AI, as you can see also maybe here. Yeah. Some of them are basic word processes, some of them are more advanced, but his results are always amazing, so I really like working with him. And what we did is, as you probably know, the situation in Slovakia is kind of bad in terms of culture, and the cultural sector is very threatened at its core by political powers. And a lot of people from the political spectrum are mentioning that mostly the populists which are in power right now, that there is something like Maidan brewing in Slovakia. And one of these politicians actually made a mistake, and he said Maidan, and Maidan means a party in Czech language. So we responded to this claim by organizing a rave on a square which was called Kulturni Maidan. We had a really low time to do this, and this was actually the visuals. So we had like 1 week to do the whole party. So I really needed a fast design, and the designer created this. And it also was like a source of an interesting backlash from students from art high school in Bratislava, and they showed some resolute anti-AI stances, in this, because of course you can see the graphic was done with the use of AI, and so this was it. So we held a lot of discussions about what is the good use of AI, what's not, and we can talk about it later.
Yeah, and that's unfortunately.
And this is the last slide.
Yeah, you have to speed up because you're eating up your Q&A, own Q&A time. Yes. Yeah. So
basically, this was like the set of examples. Of course, the use is much broader than we can fit into this shorter time span, but you can imagine that the artists from Eastern Europe are quite good in this, and hopefully we will keep up with the rest of the world as well. If you want to keep in touch, these are my contacts, and thank you very much for your attention with this session.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And as we are now really running late for the overall Q&A, I would say we have the other panelists coming right up while I'm asking one question to you, and that would be, what is, in your opinion, the kind of the most interesting at the moment in using AI in the arts? So is there anything very specific where you would say this is the super most interesting?
Well, to me, for example, the Accenture's usage of how they design their instruments and how they incorporate this setup into that is, for me, the most interesting one. Like the overlaps within the real world, not just creating digital content, So this is something that I'm really looking forward to, and the developments that are coming with this, because it's changing the performance practice as well as the whole experience of the act, and it's completely somewhere else than classic UI, like AI performances, we can say.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And thanks for the other coming back. And I mean, it was really wonderful to see how also these presentations are linked together in this realm of data, where it goes, what data is used, and how it's used, and maybe also how you could possibly use willingly or involuntarily different information. And my question to all of you, or whoever wants to answer first, is what do you think is the kind of qualities that with knowing about all these, let's say, background mechanisms that we can experience also now in arts? I mean, we saw some of the examples now, but I think there are also other further critical arts to engage with all the data. So what do you think is, to you, interesting at the moment when, with all this awareness or rising awareness of all this information and data that could be used and that's maybe not used to its full potential?
Can you rephrase the question? It was very sorry. I have a very low attention span, and if it's more than so, I'm really sorry for putting it.
So, I mean, you showed all these hidden data, all this hidden information that's out there that you could possibly use, and you also showed some very interesting examples. Mm-hmm. Do you see other potentials?
For how to use data, at the moment I'm very. It's a very in general to make art. Is this the question? Like how to use data to make art? So to me, it is a little bit of a tricky question in the sense is like what kind of data, because. I found myself, and then I kind of felt very bad for doing this. I made my own data set of video transcripts from YouTube. At the same time, I'm criticizing data practices because I understand them as basically stealing if you're not asking for permission. This is like the general, little bit why I'm also not so engage with the AI system, because at the moment I see how you can make a lot of cool stuff, but I would also like to see artists that provided the data for this being paid for, and for the data that they generated so that this system can do this cool stuff. And I found myself doing the same because I think we are kind of in this now, I think my generation, we're in this kind of mentality that if it is there, you can take it. And so now I'm kind of, in my practice, I'm trying to go back and trying to be more, respectful of the works of other people. And maybe, I don't know if asking is a good question, but it's a really, for me, you can use data to make art, but you really need to be aware of what you're doing with this data, in a sense, where it comes from. I think you really need to be you need to have maybe a bibliography of the data, I don't know, and an acknowledgement and what you do, and then there is so many levels that you can go in now, also that I won't go in, but there is a lot of that needs to be done in order for it to make an artwork out of it, I think.
I'm also looking forward to these applications in gaming and navigating the complex 3D surfaces as well. And of course some quantum computing involvement in the future and stuff like that with this. I think we are just at the start, and our minds will be blown in 2 years probably about some other developments. And I'm a techno-optimist, and I'm really looking forward to all these interdisciplinary collaborations.
I remember in the institution DIAO, like the decentralized institution of artificial intelligence or something. It's an organization founded by female researchers and technologists, and they're trying to use AI for good. Also, connected to what you presented before, like good AI versus bad AI. How do we define like AI for good, or can good AI do bad things, or bad AI do good things? I think I haven't heard too much practical or like too much media report on how AI is beneficial in this certain area and stuff. Maybe because it's not as attention-catching as those super catastrophic news and stuff.
The panel was entitled Anarchy of the AI, and I was thinking a lot where the anarchy is, or what is the kind of subversive element of these interventions, of the use of AI. And as you showed in the examples, all of you, there are arts provides very good holes for a more or less non-straight use of the technology. Do you think that this is something that is explored more, or is it kind of still catching up with what is out there? So is the race still on, or is it already at a level?
For me, I think it's like getting more and more impossible to catch up with, at least from artistic field, because in the previous years there are more open source, not open source models, but there are more papers, like open papers about, okay, this model is being trained on what data set and how this data set is filled, etc. But then they can't gradually get into trouble because of the copyright issues or some child pornographic contents. So those big tech companies start to closing up on those contents. And now it's getting more and more black box. I'm thinking maybe in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years when there's regulations on, like if you want to put a model into use, you need to open this and that documentation. Maybe at that point we can like go like catch up with the current, I don't know, whatever development, fucked up development.
Yeah, for me, the term anarchy in the AI is actually really, really well spotted, because for me, I've seen really bad examples of AI, including criminal activities. And when I was talking to Boris Vitazek, for example, with his narrative absence, he also showed me his disturbing folder. And this is something that you actually, you know, like cannot really stop, because the open source models are of course out there. They're also circulating some other models that have no boundaries, and no legislation can actually stop them. And not sure if I'm answering your question, but for me this race is endless, and it will probably continue until we are alive, and even long after that. And yeah, if it's going in the good sense or into the bad sense, we have to work on together as a society, because that will be a tough challenge. It already is. So yeah, curious what this will bring.
Yeah, I would be really
curious for what anarchy here symbolizes, because I mean it is a term that has so many implications. And when I saw the call, for me it was more to understand anarchy as a kind of Widerstand, or a kind of form of sort of resistance, because for me anarchy is something that I know from childhood in this way, but it is actually now within also capitalism. It has permutated in many different ways, and. But for me, it could also be one question, like in the AI, and also what AI means, because I think the AI that it was discussed here, it kind of implies that machine learning is the only form of AI. That is not the only form, like it's very much an umbrella term for a lot of different ways to compute sort of whatever we call intelligence. Also there, it's super questionable. But I leave it as this, because it could be like a long rabbit hole discussion.
Then we want to open this longer discussion also to the audience. Are there questions or comments? Oh, that was quick.
Hi. Hello. Yeah. So in the last week we heard a lot about DeepSeek, and they publishing also as an open source code in comparison to ChatGPT, which OpenAI is closed source. Do you see it as, it's in the round, I don't have a specific person to ask, but do you see it as a democratizing the source code, or is it kind of anarchy, or is it political game of DeepSeek?
I would have an answer, but it's more like a question. What do you mean by democratizing? Because it giving it to the all people who can, because now with this source code you can have your own Rechenzentrum, like your own computational center, and you can use your own, you are, like it's not a monopoly anymore. Yes, I mean the code is only half of the equation of AI system. Like the other half is the data that is never open source, or at least there is one, the Lion 5 that you also cited, that is open source. But for example, also now the whole discussion with DeepSeek that just arrived, I mean that is also open source, but the data is not open source. And OpenAI, nothing is open source. Llama is open source, but the data set is not open source. So what you can do democratically is that you can, or what is democratized is that you have access to the code, but you don't have access to the data, so you cannot reproduce the same thing. And in order for you to make something like ChatGPT, it requires, I don't know how many millions of dollars in order to train. So democratized, it's really, for me, it's the question, what does it mean to be democratized? On the other hand, what you also mentioned, there is this LoRa system. This I see more as a form of a sort of somehow democratization, because you can actually teach or like kind of retrain a part of the models in order to do something that is more attuned to your ideas. I don't know, I leave it to the others now.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. Not sure if please do, please go.
I also agree with what Yann said. I think like open source model is definitely better than some closed sourced, and that is only used for benefiting from users for the tech companies. But also currently there are a lot of projects about queer AI or some feminism AI models. And I think these would be better choices than open source, the ones from tech companies that is trained on still very not like quite terrible data.
more questions?
I wanted to ask whether you would consider AI to be a participant in art deserving of credit, and whether AI can be creative as the line between AI as tool and AI as something that needs to be respected as a participant in the act of creation.
In this sense, to be honest, no. For me, as that was also part of the presentation, I view it mostly as a tool, because it's also it's very handy, and it seems like it's very, very creative in the intertextuality and all of this, the remix frontier that it's on, but it's able to create infinite amount of outputs, and it's still not able to autonomously maybe so easily decide. There's always the human, which is the last, and this is the thing that we will also face probably later on in the future, when the simulation will be so good that we will actually not be able to distinguish between one or the other. But I think we are still not there, and we are actually quite far from it. But maybe ask in 2 years, we'll see where we get there. Yeah.
For me, I personally haven't made any project that is quote-unquote collaborating with AI, but I think just imagine if you are working with someone that you have no idea of how it works, you have no idea what its background culture and its background knowledge. You only know when you tell this person to do this, and this person will have that done for you in, I don't know, whatever quality. I don't know if you would call it as a collaboration.
Yeah, I think I'm in the. I'd say no, no, that you're not. I mean, I think that the question is more than. I mean, one would need to dissect the question and what is art, what is an artist, and all these kind of things. There is a lot. I mean. Because on the other hand, there is this famous artist that is Latour Boisvedon. I think everybody knows it. It was here at Transmediale for many years, and there is the question: is this a real artist or not? I mean, there is somebody behind operating it, but the art is made under this virtual persona, and there is plenty of virtual personas who make art, and so I mean. It is very much of a, I guess, very philosophical question where you define the boundaries of the agents within. So still, yeah, I guess I'm still in the know, but with an asterisk somehow.
It's a very interesting question, because it also touches the question of authorship and. Maybe the whole where we are at in the remix culture right now, with all these tools that are at our disposal. And when I think about it, it's I wrote actually my first thesis was about the remix culture, and in this sense I'm very, very how to say it, anti-ownership, or how to say it, because when the information is there, and I'm a creator myself, I actually don't care if somebody takes it and remixes it. And in this context, the whole topic of authorship is even more funny when you think about the works that are created by the help of AI, and somebody comes in and says, "Oh, that's mine," yeah. So now if somebody would have to say, yeah, it's mine and my LLM's work, it's kind of funny to think about, but maybe we will get to that point, It also, it's connected with the evolution of the software itself, and if there will be out of the box assistants who will have their own personalities at some point, well, I think we might get to that point, but yeah. I still see that from the philosophical background of this, there will always be the human that is able to pull the plug, and I don't know what should happen in for this human to be obsolete in this relationship. So we'll see. But keeping all ends open, don't want to offend any AIs in.
But maybe a question that is linked to it, but pointing a bit in a different direction, is the ascription to AI. So if you have a system, whatever system that is, whatever AI, whatever mechanism behind it, there is, I would say, an observable rising willingness to address it as in the role of a persona. And this, in a way, changes also how we perceive what whatever persona creates. And that, in turn, creates changes for art that uses these mechanisms. So how do you relate to that? Because that's not so much on the technical side, but really on the speaking about and perception.
I would have an answer. It might be a little bit. I will try to make it short. So, for me, I will bring up something really problematic, and it is so how this AI thing, it is also not only sold but also ideologically conceived at the moment for a certain category of people, Silicon Valley, venture capitalists, and so on, is really to see it as like the construction of God. I mean, all of these people behind OpenAI, blah, 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 they're all in 2 years, we have AGI, blah, and this is like this idealized future of probably everything will be amazing and we won't work and all this kind of stuff. And so, in a sense, AI is personified in this ultra-intelligent new God that will probably somehow rule. And I see it personified in this way, even though I understand it as a very technical thing, and I don't see this happening anywhere. But this is like how some sort of, how could you call it, like a religion of technology could be is constructed at the moment, no? And so, let's say this, I see this personification more into a godification of the technology in order to construct a sort of religion around it, so that you have all of these adept now that they are all in, oh yes, let's give more money to these people so that they can develop this system.
And I think it's also important, and what I noticed is that we are becoming to have expectations based on our own old science fiction, actually, while the reality could be much more complex and complicated, Like there are some titles, also movie titles and book titles, where you've got these personalized, vile AIs that are going to take over the world. But in this sense, I'm optimistic, to be honest.
I just think it's like a machine that without sensories, without embodied experience, and it's really hard to say how you like put it into a like idea of a person.
Maybe what's more compelling and interesting is how in the future this whole thing will expand on the human experience even further. We will maybe not even need like encompassed personalities of AIs, because we will become those personalities, and with endless brain capacity, able to remember everything instantly. So yeah, this is actually what I would welcome, to have really the second brain, and yeah. I can call it a different Matwe,
also welcome responses.
Yeah? Okay, great. When it comes to that, and having that second brain, and having that incorporated within ourselves, and especially also related to anarchy in the AI in this extent, there is also forms of surveillance that need to be attached to this. And how much and in what extent would you then imagine that that second brain would not be guided through the systems that are most beneficial to companies, monopolies, etc.? Yeah, that.
Well, this is exactly the point of where the open source models and the keeping it independent is absolutely crucial, because in the sense of what's happening to social networks and all these others, this total dystopic stuff and Elon Musk. And so we don't really want him to be hooked on our brain, right? I definitely don't want that. So yeah, this is was absolutely number one, like to keep it independent. So yeah.
And a very quick last question there. But you have to point out. No? No? Oh. Yeah, there she is.
I wanted to ask too then, if we view AI as a potential extension of our brain, do you see any ramifications from us using a quote-unquote brain that is not necessarily embodied in the way that our brain is now, and losing body knowledge in the way we have it, or the devaluation of body knowledge?
Devaluation of body language?
Body knowledge. And like my understanding right now is AI is not embodied and therefore does not feel the way humans feel, and is not ingrained in the ecosystems humans are ingrained in. And so I'm wondering, as we move into a world where we are exporting our brain a little bit, whether you see ramifications for the ways that we engage in ecosystems and maybe like emotional knowledge, etc., because of this export. If that makes sense as a question.
I mean, just very quickly, I think even though you call it a second brain, I would say it's just a technical object, and therefore it's a little bit now I think what you're pointing at is like, how could you call it a brain if it is separated from a body? And because this separation, I mean, we don't live anymore in this Cartesian separation of body-mind anymore. Like, I guess we can acknowledge that body and mind are one thing. And I guess you were pointing to this, like, how does a second brain exist without a body? No? Exactly. And I think I agree with you, because you probably are saying it cannot be a second brain. It's just, or at least I would say it's just a technical object, and it can only operate somewhat. Okay, but so my answer is to say it is a technological object, and it functions, or like you let it function. Sorry, I'm done.
So the technical brain can then think or try to think about how it could be anarchic to its own system. Thank you very much for the discussion, and thanks so much to the presenter of this panel.